Shell said it will stop buying Russian oil and natural gas and shut down
Don't
its
get
service
mad at
stations,
me.
aviation fuels, and other
I didn't
operations
vote
in the
for him.
country. The company said it's withdrawing from all Russian hydrocarbons in a phased manner. The decision comes days after Ukraine's foreign minister criticized Shell for continuing to buy Russian oil. Last week, Shell said it was shocked by the loss of life in Ukraine and would end its joint ventures with Gazprom, the massive oil and gas company controlled
to translate to even more expensive gas. The problem is emphasized by prices like this. We found gas for $4.59 per gallon at this Shell gas station. This is in Midtown Atlanta. The price jumped 20 cents at this station alone just this weekend. Statewide, Georgia drivers are now paying an average
at the pump right now. The AAA says the national average for a gallon of regular gas is up to $4.06. Gas prices have climbed in part to seasonal price changes and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And back here.
Yeah, diesel's still $4.99. I think gas has dropped a little. Not much. This is around the corner.
Stations are charging $6 or more.
I have a baby, so I gotta save where I can. This is one of them.
Russia is one of the world's major oil exporters, but the country's invasion of Ukraine is stoking fears of supply shortages and driving up oil prices to new highs. On Sunday, Secretary of State Blinken said the U.S. is coordinating with European and NATO allies for a possible ban on Russian oil. That announcement set the price of crude oil spiking to a 13-year high of $130.
The United States can be energy independent. All of us in the West are going to have to tighten our belts for some economic challenges because our democratic freedoms are at risk.
The impact is now falling on consumers. AAA says that the crisis overseas and the increase in demand here in the U.S. will send gas prices higher in the coming weeks.
The reality is we don't know how high these prices are going to go or when we're going to see relief at the pumps.
To save on gas, AAA recommends paying in cash when you can and also combining errands to cut down on that drive time. In Bud Lake, New Jersey, I'm Madison Allworth, Fox 5 News.
Russian people's war. This is Putin's war and his quest for whatever it may be. But to take anything off the table thinking we might not be able to use things because we've already taken them off the table is wrong. I would take nothing off the table, but I would be very clear that we're going to support the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian president, and this government, every way humanly possible. Zelensky was very clear. He says, we don't need you to fight our fight. We don't need you to fly our planes or fly your planes into our war zone. We need the planes that we can fly ourselves, and we have them on the border.
You heard Secretary Blinken. That deal seems to be
at least in motion. I hope it's very
the trading of jets with the Poles in particular.
Absolutely. Correct? We need to backfill that.
All right. On the oil and gas embargo, you heard the Secretary's answer. Basically, he's saying, yes, we're in favor of it if the entire alliance does it too, which sounds like there is an interest in doing it unilaterally. Is there a majority support in Congress for it unilateral?
I believe, and I would say this, the people in my state of West Virginia believe it's basically foolish for us to keep buying products and giving profit and giving money to Putin to be able to use against the Ukrainian people. That's exactly what he's doing. So why wouldn't we lead? Why wouldn't we show the resolve we have? I understand there's more dependency in the world, but here's the problem. We have the ability to ratchet up and be able to backfill. We have the energy. We have the resources here. And we have the technology. We're 1 million barrels short a day right now that we can just ramp up like that. We can do certain things. And we don't have to put any more pain on the American people than are already suffering with inflation now.
Right.
But I believe the American people would
try to ease some of the pain at the pump. Weisha Zhang is at the White House was more on that part of the story. Weisha, the prices are going up, and people here are not happy, but I hear people are willing to pay if it's going to help the people in Ukraine. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Gail. Good morning, everybody. That's exactly why Congress is still preparing to pass bipartisan legislation to stop buying Russian oil because lawmakers say they don't want any American dollars funding the war. And President Biden has vowed to do whatever he can along the way to bring gas prices down. But it is who he is turning to instead of Russia that is raising some new questions. On a video call, President Biden and European allies promised to keep punishing Russia, possibly with a ban on buying its oil. A new national poll shows the majority of Americans, 71%, said they would support the move, even if it meant higher gas prices here in the U.S.
No decision has been made at this point.
Speculation alone caused stocks to tumble Monday on Wall Street, marking the worst day of the year for the Dow and S&P 500, while prices at the pump soared, hitting a 14-year average high of more than $4.
Is there any way to gauge how much pain people should brace themselves for?
I do think that there is a path to potentially seeing, $5 a gallon.
Russian oil only makes up about 3% of U.S. oil imports, but Halima Croft, a commodity strategist, warns if other Western countries also cut off Moscow, the shortage would drive up costs everywhere. Croft says even though the White House is talking to Iran and Venezuela about making up the difference, only one source can offer an instant solution: Saudi Arabia.
And the question is President Biden willing to place the phone call to the Saudi crown prince?
This is all a means of exposing the insanity of U.S. energy policy that forces us to negotiate between one brutal dictator and another brutal dictator.
Now, the White House is pushing back against
40s. Morning, everybody. How is your voter remorse doing you? Are you enjoying these high prices of gasoline, the high prices of food, the higher prices just to have a roof over your head, pay for electricity, pay for natural gas, water? And it just seems that the longer Joe Biden is in office, the more everything is costing people to live. And now, also Joe Biden, we are funding a war in Eastern Europe because of Joe Biden. Oh, not to mention the female basketball player that got busted by the Russians for having CBD oil or THC oil, whichever it was, for one of those vape pipes. That's why we have not cut Russian oil off. It's because she's still in Russia.
We should look into refinancing.
Okay. Refi.
And that's why
With a rainy day fund?
we are still using Russian oil.
And house plants, furniture we don't have to assemble
home.
Had a very good life in Ukraine, in Kyiv. We love our country, but we left to our children would have a future.
There were horrible things happening. They will haunt me at night. I will never be able to sleep.
Today, U.S. officials confirmed Russia has now deployed nearly 100% of its pre-staged forces into Ukraine. Over the weekend, the Pentagon sent an additional 500 troops in the region, bringing the number of American forces in Europe to 100,000. Meanwhile, the U.S. government has waived citizens, permanent residents, or holders of valid immigrant visas returning to the U.S. from Ukraine who had been in the country by February 10th.
This afternoon, Atlanta City Council met in person for the first time in about 2 years. They've held city council meetings virtually, like many other government municipalities, due to the pandemic. The councils also broadcast the meeting online to the public.
Coming up on Fox 5 News.
They told us they could just not sit back and watch.
We landed in Warsaw and saw them immediately. 3 Americans headed for Ukraine. Ready to die, they say, in a fight for survival against the Russians.
And what's the plan? The plan to help save lives of Ukrainian people.
And Marjorie Penchek is a licensed truck driver who was born in Ukraine, but he launched this particular mission from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And while we read in his local paper that he's never been in a battle and used personal savings to pay for his tickets, he told us the hardest part was leaving behind his 3 young children.
I didn't say goodbye. I said, see you.
He said, see you later. While U.S. soldiers are staying out of Ukraine, everyday Americans like this are not specifically restricted from going in, says acting U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Christina Kaveen.
What does the American government say to Americans who are volunteering for combat in Ukraine?
We encourage all Americans not to travel to Ukraine right now, and those Americans who are in Ukraine to leave Ukraine because it is not safe.
Closer to the border, however, we caught up with bipartisan leaders of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Congressman Gregory Meeks and Michael McCall, who had just seen the war's human toll up close.
How do each of you feel about our fellow countrymen joining the fight there?
I think that what they see and what people around the world seeing is democracy's at stake. And as President Zelensky said to us, this is not just a fight for Ukrainian people. This is a fight for all of us. It's just starting here.
Ukrainians have inspired the world, and these freedom fighters, I call them.
But on Thursday, Russia's military warned foreign fighters they'd be treated as mercenaries, not as protected combatants under international law.
As far as I see, civilians are not protected by humanitarian law, so I don't take much credence to anything they say.
We spotted Christopher Callis in full body armor walking toward the checkpoint into Ukraine. Before the war, this trained pastry chef with no military experience had been splitting his time between the New York culinary scene and Ukraine. But after evacuating his Ukrainian wife and baby to safety in Portugal, he decided to go back. Not to fight, he says, but to help others.
So you're Ukrainian by marriage, but on paper you're an American about to enter Ukraine
That's correct.
Join the war effort.
Yes.
Are you worried?
I am absolutely worried, yes. But I'm more worried for the people there who are not able to leave.
Is this something you're prepared to die for?
Yes. I want my child to have a Ukraine to go back to when she's grown up.
From their homeland. But I will leave it there, guys, and send it back to you. I know you got a big interview there at the table. Please say hello to the former Attorney General for me.
I will tell him, Tony. Bill Barr, Tony DeCopel says hello.
Okay.
He says hello to you, Tony DeCopel.
Yeah.
Please stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. From the war in Ukraine, we're going to move now to questions facing this country about the health of our own democracy after the 2020 election. Former Attorney General William Barr was once considered, and note the word once considered, a close ally of former President Trump. Now he says there was no reasoning with the ex-president over his false claim that he had won the election. Now, Barr resigned after confirming.
I was talking to somebody I know yesterday, and he's one of these fellas that's, he's a Trump hater. All right. I brought up price of gasoline and whatnot. Oh, Joe Biden's a better president than Trump. That's all he could do. Better president than Trump. They want to blame everything on Trump. Some folks are blaming him for the Ukraine. Nobody's putting the blame on the Biden administration about the high cost of fuel, except for a small amount of us. But you know what? That guy wasn't mad at Trump. He wasn't mad at me either. He was mad at himself. It's all his anger that was coming out. That was his voter remorse. That's what that was. I ain't got no hate on him. But, they'll wake up sooner or later. He's one of those ones, get rid of the oil and have trees and no cars and all this crazy stuff. But y'all know that those things are needed. Trees, cars are needed. Just don't run into the damn things.
Because you know how they coordinate. It's the same reason why it's unthinkable that Biden would be coordinating or even thinking of getting back into the Iran deal with the Russians and Chinese at the table. Why are we negotiating and trusting enemies? You don't do that. That's the first start to being strong in America, is understand who your enemies are and make sure that you let them know that you understand them.
So if you would not, there's one thing, if you would treat China as an enemy, not as a rival, if you will, you wouldn't work with them diplomatically at all if you were in charge right now?
Do you know what? I mean, China right now has coordinated with Russia. When Biden went and told China what was going on and asked for help with Russia, what did China do? China ran and told Russia. I watched at the United Nations. Those two countries are getting incredibly close. They don't like each other. They don't trust each other, but they both want to destroy the West. Why are we waiting for that to happen? China, when they take Taiwan, this is going to blow up. Right now, Taiwan's manufacturing half of the semiconductor chips. What do Americans use? They use their phones. They use their computers. They drive cars. All of that will be disrupted. Why are we relying on China to give us medical supplies when we saw how they handled COVID in the world? We've got to wake up. America has to wake up, and we have to start being smart to deal with these tyrants. We can't let them continue to run all over us.
Let me play something here that
with one of those students found to have a loaded gun in her book bag. The girl, I'm told, was aggressive and belligerent, banging a stapler on the desk before knocking the coach's cell phone out of his hand during that confrontation. He did grab the student to restrain her because he says he was concerned for his safety. Now, his attorney says the district claims he violated policy. In doing so, he now faces suspension. The coach says he saved lives that day.
And during that process, we located guns, and we saved lives. And we got notice that we were on our way to an outdoor pep rally that day, and we got notice that the kids were planning on doing something at the pep rally. So, like, we really saved lives that day. And nobody wants to pay attention to the fact that we took guns.
Or even worse, but for there to be any lasting impacts, some real action, the police need follow-up from Atlanta City Hall, and therein lies the problem.
I want to make sure that we are all on the same page, that the nighttime economy in the city of Atlanta is incredibly important.
The night scene in Atlanta, it attracts visitors and year-round helps the economy. The businesses also pump revenue into City Hall. But when the enjoyment turns to something negative,
dangerous crime, which we all know is acute and has to be addressed immediately. You immediately turn to your elected leaders and your APD and you say, do something. Why aren't you doing something?
Councilwoman Mary Norwood is trying to take a comprehensive look at problems in Buckhead. And for the residents whose homes are close to the clubs, they likely have no idea about the enforcement loopholes outlined in a public safety task force meeting.
There's this tricky element to liquor licensing.
The owners do not need to apply for a liquor license under their name. They can hire an agent.
If you have an agent that has a license revoked, you can reapply with a new agent and have made no changes to the operations of your business. It's a new agent. It's considered, in some ways, a clean slate. We have recently had an application come through that the husband was denied, and so he simply reapplied with his wife's name, same business operation.
When a business is properly identified and action is deemed necessary, a limit on potential fines at $2,500 is viewed as another shortcoming.
Nightclub or nightlife operations that are pulling in six figures a month, sometimes weekly, and I know that's crazy, but it's true. $2,500 is nothing.
Analyst Courtney Smith told city leaders the alcohol license loopholes must be plugged.
Selling alcohol is treated as a privilege.
The first meeting has been held. Now, the organizers are hoping that within 6 months, they will have the new rules in place. New rules that can make a difference. From Northeast Atlanta, I'm Morse Diggs, Fox 5 News.